A confession can be the final puzzle piece that reveals the truth behind a crime, or it can expose a depth of evil no one ever imagined. Some killers break down under the weight of their own secrets, while others confess with chilling calm, relishing the chance to control the story. These tapes often become pivotal evidence, offering a first-hand look into twisted minds. Today, we're diving into the most disturbing taped confessions ever recorded. Statements so unsettling, they flipped entire investigations on their heads and changed how we view these criminals forever. Stay with me until the end, because one of these taped admissions was so harrowing, it led to sweeping changes in investigative tactics and forced the public to confront the true horror lurking behind a facade of normalcy. If you enjoy true crime, subscribe now so you don't miss next Saturday's episode, where we uncover the most chilling cases of people who vanished, only to reappear under bizarre and unexplained circumstances. Some returned with no memory, some had shocking secrets, and others left investigators more confused than before. In August 2018, Chris Watts pleaded on television for his pregnant wife Shanann and their two young daughters Bella and Celeste to come home. The nation watched him speak with a shaky voice, describing how he'd returned from work to an empty house. He insisted he had no idea where they'd gone, but from the start, something seemed off. His affect was flat, his body language evasive. Investigators quickly picked up on inconsistencies. Days later, after intense interrogation, Watts finally confessed on tape, though his initial confession shocked everyone. First, he tried blaming Shanann, claiming he had strangled her only after she'd harmed the girls. Yet the investigators, armed with forensic evidence and a failed polygraph test, pressed him further. Eventually he gave a second, more detailed taped confession, one that confirmed the worst: he had murdered all three in cold blood. Even more disturbing was how calm and matter-of-fact he sounded, describing these horrific acts. In the taped interviews, you can hear the lack of genuine remorse. Psychologists and true crime followers still debate what drove him to kill his entire family, but the confession tapes leave no doubt about who was responsible. Watts' attempt to manipulate the narrative backfired, and the public recoiled at the idea that a father could commit such an unimaginable act against the very people he was meant to protect. Today, he sits behind bars, his taped confession serving as a haunting record of a family man turned murderer. Henry Lee Lucas was arrested in 1983 on a firearms charge, but what happened after his arrest changed the landscape of serial killer investigations forever. Once in custody, Lucas began to confess, again and again. He claimed responsibility for hundreds of murders all over the United States. Law enforcement agencies from multiple states flocked to see him, hoping to close their cold cases. He talked at length on tape, detailing alleged victims and crime scenes. Yet as time passed, discrepancies emerged. Some murders he described occurred in places he'd never even visited. He gave contradictory timelines, claiming to have killed people thousands of miles apart on the same day. Investigators started to suspect that Lucas was lying to earn small privileges in prison, like milkshakes or special meals, or simply to bask in the attention. The taped confessions became a source of controversy. Certain detectives believed Lucas wholeheartedly, using his statements to solve high-profile mysteries. Others grew skeptical, pointing out how easily he seemed to adapt his stories based on hints dropped by law enforcement. Over time, many of his confessions were exposed as hoaxes, though he likely committed several murders for which he was never conclusively tried. Lucas's taped admissions revealed a disturbing dynamic: a killer who manipulated authorities by feeding them what they wanted to hear, and a system so eager to close unsolved cases that it sometimes overlooked obvious contradictions. The Lucas fiasco forced a re-evaluation of interrogation methods and the reliance on confessions without corroborating evidence. Even after he recanted many claims, the confusion he caused lingered, leaving countless families uncertain whether they'd found closure or become part of his grand deception. John Wayne Gacy was the amiable local contractor in suburban Chicago, known for hosting block parties and dressing up as Pogo the Clown at charity events. But behind his friendly persona lay one of the most notorious serial killers in American history. After a teenage boy went missing in 1978 and was last seen with Gacy, police grew suspicious. Weeks of intense surveillance led to Gacy's arrest, and soon horrifying discoveries emerged, bodies buried in the crawl space beneath his home. On tape, Gacy alternated between denial, partial admissions, and shifting blame. In some of his recorded statements, he acknowledged picking up teenage boys, yet claimed their deaths were accidents or that someone else was responsible. He insisted he was simply disposing of bodies to protect others. Yet as more remains turned up, eventually totaling 33 victims, it became impossible for him to maintain innocence. Gacy's taped discussions of how he lured teens, often by promising them construction jobs or partying, left investigators shaken. He described controlling and strangling them with a calm detachment, as if describing a routine. The dissonance between his clown persona and the cruelty in his taped admissions made the public recoil in horror. Ultimately, the confessions confirmed the scale of his crimes. He was executed in 1994, never fully acknowledging the depth of his guilt. Those confession tapes, however, remain a legacy of pure horror, showing how a seemingly friendly neighbor could harbor nightmarish secrets behind his painted smile. In Canada, Colonel Russell Williams was respected as a decorated Air Force officer. He commanded the country's largest Air Force base at CFB Trenton, even piloting aircraft for top government officials. No one suspected that beneath this polished military exterior lurked a serial predator. But in 2009, break-ins escalated into sexual assaults and then murders, striking fear in the quiet communities around Ontario. The turning point came when police noticed unusual tire tracks near the site of one murder. They called Williams in for questioning, a conversation that was recorded on camera. Over hours of patient interrogation, the detective cornered him with small pieces of evidence. A footprint match, an odd burglary pattern. Finally, Williams cracked. His videotaped confession is a masterclass in how a composed officer's facade crumbles once he realizes the evidence is ironclad. He admitted to breaking into women's homes, stealing lingerie, photographing himself in their clothing, and eventually kidnapping and murdering 2 women. Throughout the tapes, Williams remained eerily calm, even polite, as he described unimaginable acts. Canadians were stunned. How could a decorated colonel commit such atrocities, and how did he keep it hidden for so long? His confession ended with him drawing maps and detailing the buried remains of his victims. It was an ultimate betrayal of public trust, and the videotapes became a stark example of how easily a respected figure could lead a double life of shocking brutality. From the fatherly facade of Chris Watts to the haunting manipulations of Henry Lee Lucas, each taped admission shattered illusions and forced people to confront a darker truth. Sometimes these criminals toyed with investigators, weaving lies to maintain power. Other times, they laid out each detail of their crimes with a chilling lack of remorse. In every instance, these confessions served as turning points, giving law enforcement the missing piece to lock in convictions, or, in some unfortunate cases, fueling further confusion. Which confession unsettled you the most? Did Chris Watts' composure in recounting the family murders leave you speechless, or was Henry Lee Lucas's barrage of false claims more disturbing for the chaos it caused? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed these stories, subscribe now so you don't miss next Saturday's episode, where we uncover the most chilling cases of people who vanished, only to reappear under bizarre and unexplained circumstances. Some returned with no memory, some had shocking secrets, and others left investigators more confused than before. Always remember, a taped confession isn't just a moment of truth. It's a window into the darkest corners of the human mind, revealing just how far someone will go to shape their own story. Thank you for watching. See you in the next investigation.